And I am back. It's Glenda, of course. And you know my channel's AKA GK Fralin. And I just am so glad to be back and glad to have all of you to hopefully gain something from this. I know that it is something that it's hard to hear for some people. And especially maybe those who know me, you know. The thing of it is my journey. It's not my reality now. I feel the need to be honest about the whole thing. And there's some things, of course, I'm not going to reveal because they're very personal. But hopefully I can get finished with it today, and I'll be able to put them into my phone. I'll be able to put them into one of those groupings so that people can go find things about my medical stuff and things that I've done in the past. So anyway, we'll get going, and I will still have on those because I did all this recording the other day. Thank you.
But I had a purpose for the time being, so I wasn't really going back into the hospital or anything. So, you know, the purpose was getting the move done. We were disappointed that we were having to move back to the same old house, but we decided let's make it an opportunity, and so we did. I mean, we had already remodeled the upstairs, most of the upstairs. And so when my dad came up, we redid the kitchen. And I mean, we put down a whole subfloor, which meant you had to step up from the dining room into the kitchen. It made a step. But to have subfloored that whole house at that point would have been, it just wouldn't have worked. We'd have had to redo all the doors and everything, so. But the house was starting to look really nice. And I mean, we just really put time and effort into redoing that house and to make it look better. And then we were able to buy the 2 adjacent lots, because lots down here were about 45 feet wide, and that house was probably 30-some feet wide. So anyway, so once we bought those other houses, and there'd been a long tree line, that whole line of trees that was next to those adjacents it was just volunteer trees. There were a few that were actually planted, but a lot of them were just volunteer trees that had grown up, and they were all Dutch elms. They'd had a blight, and they just weren't good. So we got rid of a whole lot of trees along there. It really opened up the yard. And I don't need to tell you all about the house, but anyway, so we're redoing this one too, and we came to this one because we needed to downsize the property. Because, I mean, mowing 3 lots as opposed to mowing 1 with a small house, taking care of a small house opposed to a big house, there's a big difference. So, and the family that is there now, they have kids, and it's just awesome for them. Anyway, I went to school. I decided I'm not going to let this kill me. I did go on disability, and I hated it, but I started back to school, and I had some problems. I was in counseling. I was an outpatient, and I was seeing an outpatient psychiatrist. At first I was like every week, and then they cut it down to every 2 weeks until I'd start having a severe, problems. Anything familial, I would lose it, and I would start getting through this whole mind racing again, and rehashing, and I just couldn't stop myself. Anyway, over time, they got it under control to the point where I was going to school, and I thought I was doing okay, and then, I mean, I could do finals fine, but I had one class. It was college geometry or college algebra, And I had already taken, I had already done trigonometry before. I did not, but this was a full semester class that I needed to take. And it just wasn't going through. It just was not going through. I failed one test. And at that point, that was just another big fail for me. Because I had become so fearful of failure. I felt I'd failed at my nursing. And then I failed at this, I failed the group. And I failed, well, I just kept failing. And so my whole life had been a failure, except for my kids and my husband. Everything else had been a failure. And this was a generation where if a woman wasn't outside the house producing, she wasn't, and now it's still that way, but now men, it's okay. I mean, they respect men who stay at home and raise kids. And it's like everything's so flip-flopped, but it's out of control. And that's my opinion. But that's, to me, the whole flip-flop is out of control. And we need to realize there are differences, but they don't have to keep us from being.
Okay. I did go back to school. And I was studying social sciences, mainly psychology, at Southeast in Beatrice. I was doing it on an academic transfer because I wanted to get my bachelor's degree. I was determined, even though I had been declared permanently disabled, I wanted to be able to open at least a small business where I could start gaining. And they had come out with a program where you could earn a certain amount a month for so many months without it ever affecting your disability. Now, the reason for that, guys, isn't for me to just sit around and never do anything again. I work hard. I work hard on this stuff. But my main thing is keeping myself healthy. And my mental health is part of that. Okay, let's go back. Okay, I'm in school. Now, there were 2 instances where I did go back in the hospital at that time. I remember talking to you about I failed a geometry quiz. Not geometry, algebra. That was one of those instances. Because in my mind, yeah, it was another failure. And then there was another instance right before the end, and that had to do with, not that it wasn't the fact that my kids were getting married. It was just, I was in school, and 2 of my kids got married within months of each other, and getting through those weddings and everything, it just got to be overwhelming. So again, I went in the hospital for a little bit, came out, and thank goodness I was still okay. And I did go back later, and I did finish my college algebra. And so I graduated with honors. And I tried going to Peru State. I was riding with another gal and paying her gas money. And because, well, she just simply had a car that was much better on gas. Oh, I felt people were watching me, and they didn't even know. My counselor knew, or my advisor. But anyway, I took a couple more years off. And they say when you do that, you're not likely to go back. Well, I wasn't going to be one of those not likelies because I still was a determined type of person. So I did go back, and I graduated again with honors, but I had to take a semester off because this is where the chain, when I wasn't able to work, I was home all the time. And if you'll remember when I talked about COPD, I'm a heavy smoker. I was a very heavy smoker. At the time, I didn't realize how heavy. And Joe would try to tell me, and I was like, "Oh, you're lying to me." You know, I just could not fathom that I was smoking that much. But when you're under stress, and I'm a stress, when you're under that stress, and I still could get very stressed out, but I wasn't as likely to get so overwhelmed. But I was smoking a lot. But most of the time, the doctors were very surprised that my lungs were still quite clear. In 2005, they discovered something in my lung. Anyway, went through 2 biopsies, ready for a third. It was going to be a guided biopsy, and the doctor came back in because he checked the new CT with the old CT, and he said, "Mrs. Fralin, I am not going to do a biopsy on a growth that is getting smaller." It turned out it had been due to an infection. However, my COPD and my emphysema were becoming, I was already at stage 4. I had been noticing a lot of problems with my stamina, with being able to walk a certain distance without, and I thought it was all weight. To me, it was all weight. Weight comes on when you are taking certain medications. It's just, and when you quit smoking, then things just taste, even better because but, I'm not trying, but just about everybody I know, well, not everybody, but a lot of people who have gone on these medications have an awful time not gaining weight because your metabolism slows as you get older, and you're also getting a lower metabolism from, the medication. So you have had your eating habits all your life, so it's difficult. Well, now I'm at this weight, and it is hard to lose. It's very hard to lose. Anyway, that brings me up to the point where the COPD has been discovered because it's been a chain of events all of my life. Hopefully that has been something that's shown up through these documented. I've only been back in the hospital one time since then. And, other than that, I see my psychiatrist every many months. If I start having a lot of trouble, I get back into counseling very quickly. I'm going to say goodnight because I'm probably going to have to clip this a little bit. But I am going to say goodnight, and I do care. Hopefully this brings you to the realization that this has been a life's journey. I'm still on my life's journey. Everybody has their journey. And everybody has something they have to deal with in their life's journey. This is part of mine. So I am at a point now where I am writing. I have 3 books out. One's a book of short stories. I'm working on the 4th book, and it's finally getting, I keep saying that, close to the end. There have been some hiccups along the road with this one. My life is good, and I am productive. This is another thing I'm doing, so. And if I sometime make a little money at it, I'll be very glad. So I'll see you tomorrow. It is another day. And hasta mañana.